Hello, we got a quick, what do we call it? A bonus call here for the monetized mentoring program. If you were on the last mentoring call, there was a question emailed in by Irene. That's Irene's beautiful picture there on the left. And I wasn't able to answer the question because I needed to get some more information from her. So I was in touch with her after the call. Turns out she just lives a few blocks down from me, or at least in the neighborhood of the office. So she's in my office right now, and we're going to get through whatever she's got here for me. I don't even know what it is yet. We'll find out in a second. And but by the nature of the question, I thought it would be of value to everyone. So we're recording it here. Of course, that's a picture of me on the right. That's the best one I could find on short notice. That's me training one of my dogs to swim. That was a cool, really great day. Anyhow, so why don't we you can say hi, Irene, and then why don't we just get right to it?
Hey there. Hi, everyone.
Okay, so what have you got for us?
Well, what I'm kind of coming to it's not a wall with, but I'm trying to transition how I do things, obviously, since Magnetize. And sort of maybe it's an epiphany I had the other day, but I've been sort of, I think, crafting my business with lots and lots of lead generating events. So
You're talking about free intro events?
well, they haven't all been free, but they've been in the price bracket that you might as well call them that.
Okay, so they're low end.
They're low end.
And you do them in the evening, or?
They're usually evening classes, weekend workshops. The reason I say they're low end is because the cost has been really low.
Yeah.
However, the value people get is great. And the trouble I've had in the past is that people leave feeling as though I've sort of cured everything in their bodies and movements, and they're so blown away, almost too much, that they are overwhelmed.
Oh yeah, right.
And they may come back, and I as I mentioned a few moments ago before we started the recording, I did a tally of all my new clients since being in my new studio in Vancouver. I've just transitioned from being in this for 12 years. And I've had a pretty good retention rate, I think, considering I haven't used any of your principles. I haven't done any of the intimate marketing. And so as I kind of sit back and look at my notes and think about things, I want to use my existing base to sell, in a sense, my first high-paid event.
Okay, so the first thing with regards to, I don't know, I can't remember if we talked about this or if I sent an email back to you, but I remember the part about you saying that when people are finished either your evening event or your weekend events, that they tend to think that they don't need to work with you further because you've got their stuff handled. Was that you that I sent the email with where we were talking about? I think that you had taken about all these people that came to your evening events. I think it was about 10% of them that did buy.
No,
is that you?
not me.
Okay, great. So this is I was right to think that this was a great thing to record for everyone, because this came up with another. It was just another lady just definitely in the last week anyway. So a couple of things. So we'll find out. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions to find out what your metrics are, because that's always important to know before you can make any kind of decision or change moving forward. But in the case with this particular woman that I was talking to a few days ago, she did a couple of intro events, and it was 2 or 3 of them or something. Anyway, she had a total of about 40 people attend these events, and she came to me with the same issue, like feeling, oh, this isn't working, because all these people think that they're getting their problem solved, and that so she was thinking that she needed to cut back on what she was providing people. And I have yet to see a situation where that's a good idea. Although people think it a lot, usually it's a combination of a couple of things. Primarily, that their positioning is off, and the way that they're articulating their offer at the end, they're not clearly differentiating it from what they just gave. Okay, so that's probably what's going on in your case. Also, though, what was interesting with this woman is that whereas she thought that everything was going really catastrophic because she was looking at things in a really small sample size, right? She's saying, oh, 40 people came, I only had 4 people buy my stuff. So yeah, that's, you look at 4 buyers over the course of how long that was, that looks not very good. However, and it's not, I'm not suggesting that it is good. However, you know, there's a lot of people in this business that have been doing this for a long time and have made a nice living for themselves on a 10% close. And that's what that, you know, 4 is 10% of 40. Now, that's by no way the type of goals that we're looking towards with people that are in our monetized program for sure. However, a 10% of people that come into a free event and that buy your stuff, that is not catastrophic. It's just that it's just a challenge of the scale, right? If she just multiplied everything by 10, she'd probably be okay. But anyhow, so I thought I'd point that out. So let's talk about your metrics. You talked about you have these evening and weekend events that are low ticket. So let's talk. What's the price point of them? So the evening one, people pay typically what?
So
sometimes they're free.
Sometimes they are, and I followed sort of I have implemented pieces from Magnetize and such, and that I would do, say, a 3-hour, it's called Sit with Complete Ease, so people who work at a desk. And it used to be that I would charge $60 for that 3 hours. And what I did, just to experiment, is I made it such that it was actually, like, scaled it down to 2 hours, because people were coming away from that event, like, completely, or 3-hour workshop, blown away, their back's not sore anymore, they can sit without, you know, holding their posture in a certain way. And I kind of went, oh God, I'm giving them all of the solutions in 3 hours. And so what I've done is I've scaled it down in time. I've made it free, or $40 if you don't pre-register.
Okay. Was there $40?
And
how many people?
It's been anywhere from 6 to 8. I have a small studio space.
Oh, wait, you have a max of 9, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
9.
Yeah.
And then how often do you do those?
I did 3 in the fall, and I've got 2 coming up. 1 in January, 1 in February.
So you're doing
I'd like to do
6 a year. Or
well, yeah. I mean, technically, right now, I've got a schedule that's pretty filled up from other commitments, so I have to be on, like, kind of this hold until February, due to various other trainings in the professional realm. So I'd like to do more. If I counted everything last night in terms of workshops, and I did 15 specialty workshops last year.
Okay.
That aren't just that. I have various different intro lead-ins.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about the weekend ones?
The weekend ones are much more specific. So
what do people pay though?
They pay. My cost has been $25 per hour. So for instance, a 6-hour workshop is $150.
Okay. Well, that's not a. Are you calling it a weekend because it's just because it happens to fall on the weekend?
It's a 3-hour Saturday, 3-hour Sunday kind of deal. What I do is pretty intense. That it's hard for people to be there for 8 hours in a day.
Okay, so let's say about $150.
Yeah.
And the same, is it limited to the same size, 9 people or so?
It's limited more to like 6 because we're moving more space.
Well, and how many times do you have to do that?
This last 2, usually once a month.
Okay, so about 12 a year. Okay. And now you're looking. So far you haven't been doing any of these high ticket.
No, that's the goal is to do.
Yeah, that's a necessity in this model.
Yes, it's definitely for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the high ticket event about?
The high ticket is something that I'm grappling with. I'd like to do. I'm going to give you the bigger picture. I hope that doesn't confuse things. But if from your spiral, if I look at solution number 3, problem number 3, the higher, that would be, say, your version of monetize, and that it would be 18 months. I take people through very intensive re-education of how they use their bodies, how they deal with their mental processing. I'm struggling to decide what solution problem number two is. Because again, I don't want it to confuse in the sense of, it really comes down to being able to offer a better solution at the middle event.
What's the problem on the front end? Is it back and neck pain?
It would be body pain, muscle tightness. It's usually body pain in some way. They've been going to physio and massage and chiro, and nothing's helping, essentially. I work with a broad spectrum of people who tell me they have stuff.
Yeah, I would focus on back and neck pain. Especially back pain is massive.
Yeah, and we had this discussion, Colin and I, at Magnetize, in terms of, and I get the people when their back pain and neck pain hasn't been solved with everyone else.
Yeah.
So, and then within that, it's a whole repatterning of the entire brain, really.
Okay.
That I work with.
So what is it about your evening events? So let's say I have, it's funny, I just did have an injury. I had injured my neck recently. I was in mid of November, I guess, wrestling. I showed up late and didn't warm up properly, and then of course I'm getting yanks on my neck and I'm in trouble. Anyway, so I just was dealing with all that. So had I come to your, dealing with this back pain, neck pain, whatever. So I come to your evening event. Now, at the end of your evening event, why am I not completely healed of all of this? What's missing?
Yeah, personalized attention, customized.
Okay, but why do I need that?
You need it because in a group, in say a 3-hour time frame, it usually is virtually impossible to deal with the root reason as to why the injury happened.
Okay, so what are you dealing with? You say you can't deal with the root. What can you deal with?
I can deal with teaching the principles that we tend to not, get taught to individuals in normal therapeutic domains. So most people just, they'll fix, or they'll deal with, say, the muscle that's spasming, or the tightness, and they'll give a stretch or a strengthening exercise. And I actually kind of flip that and basically say, if you only work with, say, the area that's in pain, you're actually not getting to the root, which is actually the use of the skeleton and trauma that might be trapped in the system due to, say, the accident. And in your case, you said someone hit you, or you weren't prepared.
I just didn't warm up properly. So then
when you went to,
we were practicing a technique where the guy was yanking on my head, but my muscles were all weren't loose and warm.
Right. So that's a very specific case, because then there's also an aspect of, you weren't prepared for that, and it's more than just the muscles; it's also the nervous system. So at that point, I would kind of be like, if there is an injury that, say, someone's had in the group class in the intro, and it's due to something very specific like that, that's where I would be like, there needs to be more time to actually go in and make sure that all the cobwebs, in a sense.
So with regards to the root of it, and I heard you talked about use of the skeleton. Where is it in the intro that you teach them that those components are there and are missing?
So if I use an example like with the sitting, which is one of my intro events, is how to sit properly.
Yeah.
We'll go through some general questions and exercises, like how are you normally told how to sit? Well, you shoulders back, tummy in, all that sort of stuff. And then we go through exercises and ways of being aware of the body that actually make it such that you don't think about or act activate muscles for posture, you actually use the skeletal alignment in order to find complete proportional organization of the whole system. And it's based on applied martial arts, actually, which is the Feldenkrais work. So we go through how to sit, how to come up to stand, and use the least amount of effort possible, which is pretty game changing for people because we've been taught forever that it's the muscles that hold us up.
Okay. So now so let's say you're doing the sitting one, you're showing them people how to sit with the least amount of effort.
Yeah, and teaching them about the skeleton and teaching them about efficiency of muscle use.
Okay. And then in this next program, couldn't this be an opportunity for people to learn about all the different components of how to do basically anything with the least amount of effort? So
yes. So what I'm thinking for this one, the higher paid, is that we really dive into how does the spine work? How do you flex it? How do you extend it? How do you properly activate those muscles that we tend to just harden when we sit? And in that, we would go through all those elements, and people would learn how to sit. People would learn how to actually.
Because you could have these different evening events that you have. How many different types do you have?
There's that. There would be. I've been doing some ethical deals where people come in and they just get kind of an overall workshop on injury prevention, and that is where I do a lot more theory and really basic, gentle exercises just to show that stretching actually doesn't work, and and various things that people have been led down.
Okay,
in terms of things. Another one would be my group classes that are very basic. They're maybe 9 minutes long, and we just touch on sort of an aspect of function, like say tight hamstrings or stress relief. And this is where I'm really having to hone in on being much clearer with what my intro events are, because they're sort of all over the place.
Yeah. So the easiest transition that I could see would be to have this event where you're going to be. What's appealing to me, that's more kind of, I think the most marketable or easily marketable thing of what I've heard so far is the idea of being able to, let me back up. When it comes to a high ticket program, in the end, you want to always keep in mind that you're selling some form of transformation. So it's not the specific thing that you're teaching them that people care about. I mean, it's important to position the features of your program. That's what Magnetize is about. And that's what makes people know and that they need your particular version. But it's not the real reason why they buy. The emotional reason they buy is because they're in a certain state of being, doing, and having, and they want to be, do, or have something different. And it's that you're selling the difference. So for us, primarily, like at Magnetize Your Audience, for the most part, we're selling the idea of filled events. And there's the financial part that comes with that. There's the self-fulfillment part that comes with that. There's also this idea of a lot of clients don't like to admit it, but there's this piece of celebrity and attention. There's that part of it. There's these different parts of this transformation that they're looking to make. So, for me, the idea of being able to go through the day, doing everything effortlessly, or in my mind anyway, I might not be a typical client. However, in my mind, I love the idea of using my body efficiently and in alignment, making sure that my muscles and my skeleton are working together, and that I'm not going to be experiencing weird tightness. You know, like sometimes I'll get up from my desk and one side of my neck will hurt, but I realize I've been staring at my computer screen with my head tilted for an hour or two, and then of course everything's out of alignment. Anyhow, so this idea of efficiency and effortlessness as I go about my day, that can you see that now that there's a transformation there from whatever it is that I'm being or doing or having, whatever my experience is right now, and my idea of what that experience would be.
Yeah.
So I think that's what this program should be about, or at least this is one way that you could go.
Definitely.
Now, if you want to have multiple of these intro events, then the easiest thing to do would be once you've mapped out this. I just labeled this program as effortless, whatever you call it, or whatever's in it, I have no idea. But let's say it makes sense for you to do 5 modules, let's say. One on sitting, one on walking, one on injury prevention, one on sleeping, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
So you've got these 5, whatever it makes sense in as you probably go through and mesmerize your audience content would be the best way to do it. Once you've got these 5 modules, well then you can break them out and do little intros based on each of those 5 modules.
Per module.
Because if, let's say one of them is sitting, okay, because you have that existing, well then you could even do it in such a way that your intro is the exact same information and the exact same process that people get here. It's just one piece of it broken out. They get the entire piece from start to finish, but then at the end, you just have to explicitly articulate why really that in and of itself is not really all that valuable to them. Like, they can use the information they got, but in the end, if they don't, let's say if it was 5, if they don't have these other 4 things handled, they're just going to, their body's just going to, whatever's true, whatever's true. So that, it's, in internet marketing, there was a guy, I think it was Ryan Dice anyway. He once, a few years ago, he termed this phrase called useful but incomplete. It's basically this concept where you promise something and you give it to them, but in the process you let them know that, yeah, that's really great information, but without this other stuff, that's not going to do anything. It's useless.
Okay. So I'm glad you're saying this because I actually went through this last night. You guys can't see my paper, but as Justin can see, I've got like 10 levels that I thought this would have been the next level. In that my goal is to actually take all the training I've done with my trainings that I've learned and actually bring the general public to me, rather than them having to go into professional training to become a teacher of this work, which happens, say, in yoga. The only way to really intensively study yoga is to go into yoga teacher training. And so I want to bring a level of ease to individuals who really want to study how to use their body and brains and mind in this kind of a format. And so I guess I was getting confused in that these, say, 5 that you said would be the next level.
That there would be 5 levels?
Yeah, well, I'm liking this to, this would be the verge, like, say, magnetize for you guys, and then my next level where I have 10 modules would be the equivalent to, say, your mesmerize and monetize. So what I'm having a little trepidation around is taking people from these intro events and saying, you've got to do 5 3-day weekend workshops.
Oh, but
you see what I mean?
But these don't necessarily have to be. You could do this all over a 3-day period.
All these?
Yeah. If you can't, then you got to change.
That would be impossible.
Yeah. Well, then that's not. Then that's not going to be a good design. Then.
Yeah. Exactly. That's the thing, is to really get into sitting. That's an entire weekend. To really get into.
But I thought you do the sitting in the evening.
You can't cover the detail in a 3-hour thing.
Okay, so
I was trying to. And it was way too much.
So why is it that you're experiencing people feeling like they come to your evening for sitting and then they feel like they're done?
I think it's just been my confidence and not offering a higher. I think it comes down to my
Usually
emotional
that's
block.
what it is. Yeah.
Is I go, oh my God, would these people really pay $1,000 to come here for 3 days and learn how to?
There's only one way to find out.
I know. So, and that's where I'm coming to is like, would that? It is this element of nobody in my community has ever done this. You know, we sort of have that poor mentality of charge $100 for 3 days and whine about it.
Well, based on that, I like the idea then of this, putting it up here, because if it needs to be an ongoing, you know, if we're having multiple events or if it's spread out over months or whatever, then that's fine.
So, like I had mentioned, it's that first entry into this, say, 3-day event where I'm like, I don't want it to be pieces of this 10-step or 5-step program that's more, say, year-long based. Is what would that initial high ticket paid event be? Would it be?
Well, if you have these 5, let's say, again, we're just making this up, but let's say you have these 5 things, you could just break one of them out, do that here, and then do the other 4
in another
later.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing. You want to make sure that just because you've packaged something a certain way in the past, don't think that you have to do it the same way moving forward.
Fix it.
I'm trying to think of an example in our business where specific examples not coming to me, but the idea of, you know, what we package as Magnetize Your Audience as an example is not what Magnetize Your Audience was whenever we started 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever it was. Well, basically, what happened, Callan and I got excited about an opportunity. She was learning from me, and I was learning from her, and we're like, hey, we were getting excited about being in business together, and then, but we didn't really know how it was going to look. So we had this speaking engagement, and so I got up on stage, and I basically invented our business model on stage in front of this group I was giving them a bunch of information about filming events, and because it was at a speaking engagement where they were all workshop and seminar leaders, and I had it built into my little presentation. It was like 2.5 hours long, where I was asking them questions and getting feedback. I was like cleverly getting them to on the spot to kind of tell me what I should sell them, and so then I did, and this is this story that Callan and I have told a few times. There was 36 people there. I sold Magnetize Your Audience for $2,000, and 32 of the 36 bought it. The problem was, which was a great result, and amazing result. But the problem was that what I promised wasn't really deliverable, as it turned out. Basically, I ended up promising magnetize, mesmerize, and monetize all in a 3-day event, and which was exciting and fun from the stage, and everyone was, went crazy for it. And then in the weeks afterward, as we tried to figure out how we're going to put this event together, we realized, oh my goodness, I felt like a total idiot, because now we were going to have to go back to these people and tell them that what they bought isn't exactly what they were going to get. And obviously I was paranoid about that. And but the good thing about it was that was actually how we designed our business model. So the important thing was, that was a really small amount of time, so it was easier for us. Not like if you've been doing something for years, it's a lot more difficult to step back. But anyway, the point was that we had originally packaged this thing called Magnetize Your Audience with all of this stuff in it. And then, even though people had bought it, we realized that, that's not the ideal way of doing things. So we changed it on the fly. Originally, we just separated it into a magnetize and a mesmerize. And even magnetize and mesmerize, don't get confused that the monetized content was missing. It was in there, but it was in mesmerize, and some of the stuff that's in mesmerize right now was in magnetize. It just didn't make sense, right? Our very first event, we had an image consultant come in and speak for about 2 hours at Magnetize Your Audience. You can imagine that.
Image consultant. What did it? Sorry.
Yeah, like telling you what colors to wear and how to dress on stage to be an
sure,
influence.
Sure.
Now,
Wow.
looking at our model now, I think, well, that's clearly mesmerize content. But remember, we didn't have things positioned the same way back then. So it kind of made sense, but it didn't in the same way, you know. And ongoing, we continue to refine all of our programs, and then we realized, we could break out a bunch of content and create another one called Monetize Your Audience. So it was we didn't feel obligated to staying stagnant, and we never have. I mean, our programs are changing all the time. So anyhow, the point of that was, even if you had an existing program that had these 5 modules in it, there's nothing to say that you can't, from this point forward, have the exact same event that only has 4 modules. You break out one of the modules, you can put that before and use it to lead in, or you can use it as an upsell after. I mean, you can do whatever you want, right? It's your...
So would you then suggest that, using this model here, that, say I have 5 themes that I teach people, that each one of these could potentially be an intro event, a self-hosted, which is what I've kind of been doing.
I am suggesting that. However, if you're looking at this as a group being being an ongoing, like a really high, like a higher ticket, then you need what's leading into it to be also fairly high ticket. Like, as an example, it's extremely unlikely that I would ever even consider the idea of selling Monetize Your Audience at an intro event, because I'm going from free to 10 grand. That's going to be a really tough sell. So I don't. We sell something that's high ticket, but more moderate first, and then So you don't want to go for free into this package. That would be tough.
No.
So if you are going to break out pieces, you need to position them in such a way that people will invest a significant amount of money for that piece, which means that it needs its own low ticket content.
Yeah.
Whether it be a live event or a webinar content, it needs something to lead into it.
Yeah. But what you're saying is that there still needs, before this granddaddy year-long thing, there needs to be a smaller event similar to your Magnetize that goes into maybe one of these specific pieces.
Yep, and like as an example, could be the sitting. So you're doing a sitting workshop right now and it can last 2 days, and people are paying anywhere from free to $40 to attend. Well, I don't see any reason why you can't charge $300 for that.
Yeah.
So that right there would start to make a significant change to your model. So now something that is free, people are going to pay, let's say $297 for it. That's totally doable if there's anything in your mind that's saying it isn't.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So, however, you wouldn't want to just put an ad in the paper or send an email saying, "Hey, good news! I got this event. It's $297." Yeah. You want to, of course, have some educational or experiential based marketing that's going to position that. So, at the very least, you need to be teaching people what is it that's happening at this sitting workshop that they're going to pay $297. What are the components of that are necessary? So what is it? You need to position the actual features of that. So one of the ways you could do it, the easiest way to do it, would be to take someone who has back and neck pain, give them an education and an experience of how it is that their sitting is either causing the injury or making it worse, or preventing them from getting better, whatever the truth is. I'm not an expert in your thing, so if I say anything that's untrue, you just change it. So you're going to give them an education and a bit of an experience as to how sitting is a primary component to their recovery. Then when you sell them an opportunity to come and work with you specifically on their sitting for $297, they're going to be very open to that. Then they come, they hang out with you for a couple of days, learn how to sit. Then towards the end, you're going to teach them how sitting is one of, it's the most important component, but it's one of 5 components, let's say. And the key is when you have all 5 of them, you can make sure that you're going to be healing in the shortest amount of time, or whatever, and then now you've got a longer based program that's higher ticket where sure you can work on them more on the sitting if you want, and then you've also got these 4 other components that you can be working on.
Okay. So a question that comes up from that for someone like me who's just starting out, who may not have the numbers to fill the larger, right? So say I'm doing 2 sort of intro classes this month, and they're all past clients, so they repeat. But I want to position let's just say the 2-day higher end. That will be easy for me to put together. But let's say 40% of them take me up on that. At the end of that, because I'm still at low numbers, I guess my kind of, it's not fear but anxiety is I'm hesitant to set a longer program when I'll only have 2 people.
Yeah,
right?
That's a risk. That's a risk in the beginning, and what we did was, I don't know if this would be possible for you. What we did was the reason that our Monetize Your Audience program, the mentoring component, is 18 months long, is because when we did our very first Magnetize Your Audience and we sold Monetize Your Audience, we said, well, we're going to put that event 18 months out. So that gives us a year and a half to do more than one Magnetize to make sure that we can fill that Monetize event. The problem was the first people that bought had to wait 18 months. That's why we created the mentoring program. We said so that we could continuously give value. It's called a retention strategy. So that we could be continuously giving value to people over the 18 months.
So then, how's this for an idea? Because I have audio lessons that I record. Would be to offer monthly audio recordings in the interim so that people can practice at home.
Sure.
As a very, again, similar to what you guys have done.
Yep. If you do things that are video based, even better. You can do you can do little tutorials or demos and have someone film them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would. If you're gonna do that, make sure that people somehow have access to you. So we did it, and still do it over the phone with these mentoring calls. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is just making sure that when you publish, let's say you're doing these video modules and you put them on the page, make sure that people can interact with you underneath, or maybe you post them into a Facebook group where people can relate.
So there's engagement.
To you. So there's engagement with you specifically, and you can do it in a lot of different ways that don't take up much of your time. I think we're pretty good at interacting with people on Facebook. It doesn't take much time.
No, you guys are very good. Especially
the key why Kellen loves Facebook so much is that if you actually watch, she is on there a good amount. She's on there more than I am. However, if you actually look at it, I think that part of the reason that it looks good on us, that people put stuff on there and they're getting lots of feedback and advice and stuff like that and support. But if you look, actually, most of it is fellow participants. It's not us. That's what I love so much about Facebook. You're all supporting each other under our umbrella.
Yeah. And
the perception is, I think that I think we get credit for being even more generous than we are. Because you understand what I mean?
No, I
it's a form of leverage. If you if you look, it's anyway.
Okay.
So make sure that you've got something like that in there. And then that really works well for
retention. But that was a valid concern that I had. Then you would agree that having people wait until there's an event filled is.
Oh, you always want retention.
You
always need retention.
Bringing them in.
Yeah, when you come to the Monetize Your Audience live event, that's one of the things that we won't let you leave without a retention strategy in your offer. Okay. Then the other thing is just math. Like you said, you've got 9 people that come to an event. You're doing the event a certain amount of times per year. You have to backtrack everything up front when you're doing your scheduling and your calendaring. That's one of the things I think that a lot of our students are missing, and it's one of the reasons why we're. I don't know if you've noticed we just launched another program, our Prosperous Women. Anyway, one of the things in there is telling people exactly what to do at what specific time. So an important part of that is in that program is going to be getting people to step back and actually put some thought ahead of time into mapping out their calendar.
Did that last night.
Good, and not just from a standpoint of when the dates work, but making sure that if you're doing these front end events, that you're doing them at specific times and that you're doing enough of them with enough people that you know, or you can pretty well know that your events, that your high ticket events are going to be full. And I'll tell you, the biggest challenge I think in our business, now this may be an exaggeration, I don't know if it's the biggest challenge, however, a frustration at the very least is doing small events. Small events in many ways are tougher than big events because cancellations are catastrophic. Yeah, like if you
I know.
With 9 people,
if you lose 3 people,
you lose only 3 people, which is totally reasonable, and that's a third of your program now, and now you're having to work 30% harder to fill either that one or future ones. Because I said that wrong. You're not having to work 30% harder, but let's say you have 9 people in an event, and last minute 3 people say they can't come. You say, hey, no worry, I have events later in the year, so you let them go later in the year. Well, now you've just decreased your profit potential and your business growth by a significant amount, not 30%, but in this case, if you're doing, quickly the math, it would be about, anyway, in that case, it would be, you're dealing with 54 people and taking 3 out. So you're digging into your own potential by about 6%.
Yeah.
And if you do that every single event,
it adds up.
If you lost 6% every time you did over these 6 events, now so you're selling yourself short in your business by 36%, just because you're doing small events and having to shuffle people around.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying this to say that your model's wrong or anything like that, because we experience the same thing. Our mesmerize events we keep very small. I think 25 people. Our monetize events we keep to 20 people as well. And on the scale of business that we're operating on right now, it costs us a lot to keep our events that small. So that's an important thing to consider.
Yeah. Well, and 24 people in what I'm doing is where I would like to I want to get to.
Yeah.
There's research on actually why 24 is a magic number.
Oh, really?
Have you heard of that?
Oh, we've had 24.
It's called the median group. I'll send you the info.
Oh, okay, great.
But it's what I'm striving for, and in that I have to have assistance, because with the delicacy of this work, you need to have support. For say for every 8 people, you need another person, just because you're going into emotions and all that stuff. But I had a question float through my head and now it's gone. I think what I was coming up against, and maybe just let me know if this isn't true, but in Magnetize it was all about finding that specific audience. And what I'm coming to see is that the self-hosted intros or the speaking engagements can actually be 2 very different audiences.
Oh, yes.
Because to give you an example,
well, not very different, but they can be, but not ideal.
Yeah, I've been playing with meetup groups, and the ability to, I've got a gig with a running group in Vancouver. The next one's going to be a yoga group. And all sorts of different ones where I'm going to go in and pretty much tell them about what I do and the basic pieces that I teach.
Yeah. Well, it'd be fun if you were talking to, if this is possible, because I'll use the example of sitting, because we keep using the sitting thing.
Yes.
But could you put together some education that positions the runners how they'll actually be better runners if they learn to sit better?
For sure.
Yeah, then that's an easy.
Yeah, for sure. It's fun. It's a strange leap for people to understand, but in the Feldenkrais work, he taught going from sitting to standing as the ultimate way of learning the posture.
Oh wow!
And it's true. And he takes it from you being a fighter to understand this, the ability to get up without hesitation or preparation. If you're organized in sitting, which both of us aren't right now, you are completely organized in your skeletal structure.
Yeah.
And so when you teach that, it improves people's running, walking, dancing, standing, work. Or if you're even a pianist, right? The way your hands can be light if you're sitting properly.
For sure, yeah.
So there's a...
I'd be a better drummer if I learned to sit like too.
Of course. Yeah, my husband's a percussionist. And his ability to play is just amazing.
Yeah.
There's no weight in the fingers anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
so I was starting to think that it was too simplistic of a intro event, but the more I kind of sit back and talk with you, I kind of go, actually, and everyone sits.
Oh yeah, I
in
don't
our
think
society.
it's too simplistic.
Okay, great. That's good to know.
Just be careful though. If you're going in to speak to runners though, don't lead with the sitting thing, right?
It's the pelvis.
Well,
Or
okay, that could be the feature, but
Yeah.
that's not. Yeah, the promise has to be something about them being a better runner.
Lightness in their running,
Sure.
efficiency of their legs.
And that's the that's what would be built into your temporalizing title. Then you would eventually position the fact that if they get better at sitting and then that transition from sitting to standing, how that's going to improve their running. Well, then of course they're going to want to register through the program.
Good, I'm glad I asked that. Perfect.
All right, good. Yeah, I this is starting to take shape for sure. I mean, you definitely still have some work to do. Do you have any other pressing questions there?
Not so much. It's more going from what I've been doing, which has been okay, to shifting it. The one thing would be educating my current client base so that they don't get shocked when I do offer a higher...
Yeah, that's a challenge for just about everyone. One of the things I would say to that though is to keep in mind, one is how would I phrase it? For me, it really helps when I contrast what it is that exists right now and compare that to my vision of what I am creating. So what that allows me to do is to realize, even for us right now, 7-figure business, we have a decent sized email list that people want us to, trying to approach us all the time, all this stuff. And it's easy for me to sit back and look at, okay, we've accomplished something here, and relative to where we're going, it's extremely insignificant. So that gives me the freedom to make decisions and structure things the way that I want so that we can continue to go where we're going. If there's a short-term backlash for that, it doesn't really affect me because it's insignificant. It doesn't matter. So for us, if I was to make, if I knew that there were some changes that we needed to make so that we're going to make it effortless, or going to make it more streamlined and efficient for us to get to where we're going, to serve the amount of people that we want to serve in the way we want to serve them and all that. And if I knew that making the decision right now was the right thing to do, but there was going to be 10 or 12 of our monetized students that would be up in arms about it, I wouldn't. I would still take the time to communicate to them and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't be overly affected by that because I would understand the insignificance of that relative
to the grander scheme scope.
Exactly.
Okay.
So when you're, if you're worried about people unsubscribing from your email list, stuff like that, I promise you, it doesn't mean anything. It's not even a drop in a bucket.
So here's my final question, and I'm glad I remembered this, is that because I do want to obviously make some money in the next few months before I have time to do all these beautiful speaking gigs and getting more people in, what if I actually offered to my existing clients, I wouldn't call it this, but a beta version. So if I think about the sitting workshop, it really should be more than the $297 for what a person would get for 2 days. But to offer to my existing people that.
I just picked that number because you were giving it away right now.
Exactly.
That's the absolute lowest number I would want to see you go with.
Yes.
So I picked that number just because I assumed that you'd have no resistance to it.
That's fair.
But if you want to be $497, great. Yeah, you can tell people,
in the future
it's going to be $497, but for
my current people.
What we did, our very first, magnetize your audience with regards to developing the content, we did it through a virtual teleclass. And so we let people get enrolled, and we charged them $14.95, I believe. Yeah, $14.95 or $14.97, I forget. And because at that time we were charging $2,000 for magnetize your audience. And so we said, okay, well, you're going to get in at a lower tuition. However, we didn't just leave it at that. We actually tied it to a responsibility, which is actually important, because otherwise, like, if you just come to someone and say, hey, it's $2,000, but hey, you can get it for $14.95. There's an element of that where you're just being you're a car salesman now. You're giving them something. Now,
bargain basement.
Yeah. Now, that's not to say there is power in that. So I'm not saying that's wrong. However, it really cements that savings if you can give a really strong rationale to it. And this is something that if you haven't gotten to it yet in Monetize Your Audience, you will. When you come live, we're going to make sure there's rationales built in all over the place in your offer. However, one really cool thing to do to make a rationale even more powerful is if you tie it to some form of commitment to them. So what we did was we said, just because it just makes the rationale so real and so believable. There's no reason for them to perceive you as any type of a tech. You're not doing any type of a technique. Everything makes sense. So we said, it's $2,000 for the initial. We want a small group of 12 people. You can have it for $500 savings. However, as we go through each piece of the module, we want to get feedback from you. We'll show you how to structure it, but we want feedback on every single module before we move on to the next module. So now in their mind there was this, that makes perfect sense. Easy. Basically, we were paying them $500 to help us develop
your program.
So it totally made sense in their mind, right? So anyway, it was really strong.
Great. Okay. Perfect.
Pretty well everyone that we brought it to was a yes.
Yeah. Great. That was that was going through my head. So thank you. Cool.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah. We could talk for hours, but no. Okay. For now, that's.
Let's wrap it up. Our staff is just showing up at the office here. They're tiptoeing around, trying not to disturb. If you're still listening, I say, good on you. We've been chatting for almost an hour. It's been 52 minutes and change. So, if you're still listening, I trust that you got some value out of this, and I just say good on you for still for listening. Obviously, you are very dedicated to what you're doing and to build something extremely significant to sit here and listen to us yammer on about Irene's business. But well worth your time, I trust. And this will be posted on the Monetize group page. So please, if you have any questions about any of this, just simply ask them in the form of a comment below this video, and either myself or I'm sure Irene, you're on there a lot. I'll volunteer your time.
Thank you.
And
no problem.
And Callan as well will be on there, and happy to clarify anything that may have been confusing or anything like that. Anything, or just to give Irene some love, that would be appreciated too. So thanks for listening, and hopefully we do some cool stuff like this in the future as well. Until next time, be brilliant.